Welcome back to NBC News Channel. Today, we will learn about the issue causing shockwaves through the fictional town of Salem, a targeted, systematic dismantling of the DiMera dynasty that has left Johnny and Chanel DiMera in a state of absolute, paralyzed panic regarding the safety of their adopted son, Trey. The fabric of reality in Salem is tearing at the seams, specifically for those bearing the burden legacy of the DiMera surname. What begins as a whisper of danger is about to escalate into a deafening roar of crisis during the broadcast weeks of mid-December. The narrative epicenter of this terror is the realization that the kidnapping of family members is not merely a coincidence, but a calculated purge. Johnny and Chanel, young parents already navigating the complexities of their marriage and adoption, are about to be thrust into a nightmare where the walls of the DiMera mansion feel less like a fortress and more like a cage. Their primary source of terror is not just for their own lives, but for the innocent life of little Trey DiMera, who, by virtue of his adoption, has inherited the target painted on the backs of his new family. The fear is palpable, visceral, and completely consuming. The catalyst for this renewed wave of terror begins with a harrowing disruption in communication involving Mayor Abe Carver. In scenes that promise to be heart-stopping, Abe attempts to reach out to his son, Theo Carver, expecting a routine check-in. What he encounters instead is the stuff of parental nightmares. The phone call, initially intended to bridge the distance between father and son, becomes a conduit for panic. Spoilers indicate that the conversation does not end with a goodbye, but with a chilling disconnect, an abrupt silence, or perhaps the chaotic sounds of a struggle that confirms Abe's worst fears. Theo is gone. He is missing from the line, and the void he leaves behind screams of foul play. The psychological toll on Abe will be instantaneous and devastating. James Reynolds, a veteran at portraying the stoic strength of Abe, will be tasked with unraveling that composure into sheer, unadulterated panic. Stepping into the breach of Abe's emotional collapse is Paulina Price. While usually the source of flamboyant drama, Paulina will be forced to summon a reservoir of maternal strength and stability to keep her husband from falling into the abyss of despair. Her role in this unfolding tragedy is pivotal. She must be the anchor in the storm, comforting Abe even as the reality of Theo's disappearance sends shockwaves through their extended family. The disappearance of Theo is not an isolated incident, but rather the first domino in a chain reaction that Paulina and Abe must navigate together. The emotional intimacy of this crisis will likely test their bond, forcing them to rely on one another as the external world becomes increasingly hostile and unpredictable. The news of Theo's disappearance travels fast, striking a nerve with Chanel DiMera. When the update reaches her, the pieces of a terrifying puzzle begin to snap into place with horrifying clarity. Chanel, possessing a sharp intuition, instantly recognizes the pattern that others might miss in their grief. This is not just about Theo, this is about the DiMera connection. She realizes with a sinking heart that another member of the extended DiMera clan has been snatched from their lives. This realization acts as a cold shower, washing away any illusion of safety she might have harbored. The kidnapping of Theo acts as a grim confirmation that the family is under siege, and the attackers are striking with impunity, picking off members one by one in a campaign of terror designed to cripple the legacy. It is here that the narrative takes a deeply personal and terrifying turn for Johnny and Chanel. The realization that the DiMeras are being hunted transforms their anxiety into a specific, agonizing fear for their son Trey. Though Trey DiMera is adopted, in the eyes of his parents and evidently in the eyes of their enemies, he is a full-fledged member of the dynasty. The spoilers suggest a heartbreaking sequence where Johnny and Chanel are forced to confront the possibility that their innocent child could be the next victim on the list. The mere thought of little Trey, defenseless and unaware of the blood feuds that define his family name, being targeted is enough to drive Johnny and Chanel to the brink of madness. They are shaken to their core, their every waking moment consumed by the need to shield their son from the invisible predators circling their home. Recognizing the severity of the threat, EJ DiMera, the current patriarch and often the ruthless pragmatist of the family, takes drastic action. He perceives the clear and present danger to his son Johnny and his daughter-in-law Chanel. In a move that blends paternal instinct with the strategic paranoia of a mob boss, EJ moves to arrange a phalanx of security for the young couple. He intends to surround them with bodyguards, turning their lives into a secure zone. This is a precaution born of necessity, a desperate bid to fortify the remaining members of the family against the shadows coming for them. EJ understands that the enemy is bold and striking close to home, and he refuses to let Johnny or Chanel be the next headlines in a tragedy. However, this protective measure is met with friction. Johnny and Chanel, despite their terrifying realization of the danger, are reportedly resistant to the suffocating presence of constant security. They are young, desiring a semblance of normalcy for themselves and especially for Trey, which creates a complex dynamic. They loathe the intrusion, the loss of privacy, and the constant reminder of the threat that the bodyguards represent. Yet, beneath the frustration lies a grudging acceptance. They know, deep down, that they have no choice. The extra protection is a cage, but it is a cage that might just keep them alive. They will have to navigate domestic life with the looming presence of hired muscle, a constant visual representation of the fear that dictates their existence. But the irony of the situation is cruel and swift. Just as EJ DiMera orchestrates the safety of his son and daughter-in-law, the trap snaps shut on him. The spoilers reveal a twist of poetic justice or perhaps tragic hubris as EJ himself becomes the next victim of the kidnapping spree. The man who thought he could checkmate the enemy by fortifying his family is removed from the board entirely. The narrative describes a rude awakening for the DiMera Titan, as he is not merely taken, but thrown into the family vault. This location is significant. The DiMera wine cellar and vault are symbols of the family's dark history, often used by Stefano to imprison his enemies. For EJ to be cast into the darkness of his own family's dungeon signifies a total collapse of the family's defenses. The protector is now the prisoner, leaving Johnny and Chanel even more vulnerable than before. This sequence of events sets the stage for a week of high-octane drama scheduled for December 15th to 19th, culminating in a casting shakeup that has longtime fans buzzing with anticipation and dread. The spoilers confirm that Dan Gauthier will be stepping into the complex and historically rich role of Peter Blake. For those uninitiated in the deep lore of Salem, Peter Blake is a character of immense significance, Kristen DiMera's brother and the adopted son of the Phoenix himself, Stefano DiMera. His return to the canvas is not a cameo, it is a seismic event. The reintroduction of Peter Blake adds a layer of mystery and potential malice to the proceedings. The central question haunting his return is one of allegiance and intent. Is Peter Blake the mastermind behind this systematic dismantling of the family? Is he the architect of the kidnappings, returning to claim a twisted inheritance or settle old scores? Or, in a twist that would subvert expectations, is he another victim, swept up in a vendetta that targets anyone who ever called Stefano father? The ambiguity of his position is deliberate. Dan Gauthier's first appearance on December 19th is poised to be a cliffhanger moment, a reveal that will likely recontextualize the entire kidnapping plot. His presence brings the history of the DiMera and Blake families crashing into the present, linking the current chaos to the sins of the past. Throughout these 2 weeks, the atmosphere in the DiMera mansion will be suffocating. Johnny and Chanel are left as the de facto guardians of the legacy, a role they never asked for and are ill-equipped to handle while paralyzed by fear. With EJ in the vault and Theo missing, the support structure of the family has crumbled. Every shadow looks like an abductor. Every phone call sounds like a threat. Their fear for Trey is the emotional anchor of this storyline. It grounds the high-concept soap opera villainy in the very real, primal terror of parents engaging in a fight for their child's survival. The image of them shaking with fear, clutching Trey, while the powerful members of their family vanish one by one, paints a portrait of desperation. The narrative trajectory suggests that the kidnapper is toying with them, isolating them psychologically before making a final move. The other day's spoilers hint that the chaos will be unrelenting. There will be no breathing room for the characters or the audience. The pacing is set to be frantic, mirroring the panic of Abe, Paulina, Johnny, and Chanel. The writers are dismantling the status quo, stripping away the characters' safety nets to see how they survive in the wreckage. As we look toward the broadcast dates, the anticipation builds not just for the resolution of the kidnappings, but for the fallout. How will Abe recover from the trauma of losing Theo again? How will the dynamic between Johnny and Chanel shift under the pressure of constant surveillance and the terror of potential loss? And what condition will EJ be in when Arif is retrieved from the cold silence of the family vault? Ultimately, this storyline serves as a grim reminder that in Salem, the past is never dead. It returns in the form of long-lost brothers like Peter Blake and manifests in the repetition of history, where DiMeras are snatched from their lives and imprisoned in the dark. For Johnny and Chanel, the gloss of the DiMera wealth has worn off, revealing the dangerous rusted iron beneath. They are learning the hard way that the name DiMera is a double-edged sword. It commands respect, but it invites destruction. These of our lives spoilers promise that the next 2 weeks will be defined by this chaos and fueled by surprises that no one sees coming. The audience is advised to stay tuned, for the safety of Salem's most prominent families has never been more fragile. The terror is real, the stakes are lethal, and for Johnny and Chanel, the nightmare is only just beginning.